Hello, this is my castle project, and let's get into it. So this is just an overview of everything, and all of my parts included, but let's start it off. First, we have the keep, which is basically the main fortified building. For me, this is kind of where the high officials are staying. And this is also basically the last fortified place if everything else falls down, basically. Here is the church. This is where the townspeople can go ahead to praise the God or the spiritual being. It's a place of worship for the townspeople and anyone else who may want to come in for the high officials or even the soldiers. Here's the inside of the church. We have the pews, a podium where the speaker, the pastor, the priest may stand. And then we also have this fantastic photo. It's fantastic. And then we have our holy book of knowledge. A holy book of knowledge. See, this is very, very important. This is what the people of the castle listen to. This is what they aspire to. This is what they get their intelligence and their reasoning from. So this is very, very important. Next, we have the gallery. This is where there will be pieces of artwork and history for the people and for the townspeople and for the people of the castle. This is where it will be with a bunch of photos, history books, etc. Here is my stable. This would be where the horses are, where they would eat, where they would be taken care of, where they would drink, maybe probably even where they would be breeded. But yeah, this is where the horses stay, and we use our horses for exploration and travel. Next up, we have a storage house, a storage room. This is behind the keep, mainly because this is for excess things, but it also is kind of like a treasure room. So for the high officials, most of the time this is locked up, and they would want to put their things in here in excess things of the castle that may not be needed at the moment. Next, we have a farmland. This is basically to basically feed the people of the castle, the soldiers, the high officials, and even the residents, the townspeople. This is where they get their food. This is where they grow the crops and stuff. You need a very big piece of land for this because it's agriculture, but this is where it is. Next, we have a training yard slash dojo. This is where the soldiers would go ahead to train, to better their combat, to be better in expertise, etc. So this is where they would train. And then right behind it is the barracks where the soldiers would stay and live. This is where the soldiers would be spending most of their time if they are not on patrol on the walls, if they are not guarding, if they're not on duty, or if there is not an attack on the castle. This is where the soldiers will most likely stay. Another thing for it is also the soldiers' mess as well. Next is the residence. This is where the townspeople live and stay. This is where they're going to be staying for most of the time when they're in the castle. Mainly when they're not getting out to go get food, or if they're not just wanting to go ahead and leave their houses, their village a little bit. But most of the time they cannot leave the castle as it is restricted and protected by the high officials. And here's another view from the other side of the houses for the residents. And then on the complete other side, we have the markets. This is where the food from the farmland and the crops would be taken over to. So they would be sold to the townspeople and to the high officials and stuff. And this is also where the soldiers would get their food and stuff. So this is basically where the food is sold. And also where townspeople could go ahead and exchange goods between one another for a price. Next, we have my favorite little bit. It is the center water fountain. It's just a nice water fountain. I put it in the middle, kind of as a nice landmark, I guess. But there is a water fountain. Next is my Chinese arch, basically. This is basically found in very found in a lot of ancient Chinese castles or buildings, and it is supposed to symbolize and represent strength and honor. And as I have a Chinese/Asian style castle, I decided to put this in here. So next we have the inner wall. This is basically the second layer of defense, not as strong or fortified as the first layer of defense, but this is the second layer of defense if the first one gets taken down, and even if they get through the other defenses such as the moat. So this is the inner wall. Next up is the gatehouse. Oh, the gatehouse. This is basically where basically like the building where they would have to get through. This kind of it's also the second fortified building after the Barbican, where they would have to get through this to get into the official inner ward of the castle, basically. Next is a moat, another layer of defense. This is the moat, basically, a ditch or a pool or like a lake of water that they may have to cross to, they may have to cross over, and it'll be an obstacle for them if they do not have this, which is a drawbridge. So this is for basically to get over the moat, but for when all people need it, for when like the castle and the townspeople need it, you could pull it back and forth so they will not be able to cross and stuff. So that is my drawbridge. Next, we have the outer wall. This is the first layer of defense and probably one of the most important things of your castle. This is the outer wall. It's the first layer of defense. They have to get through this, and as you can see, it is more fortified and bigger than that inner wall. So there you go. Then I have watchtowers, so that people may watch for oncoming enemies and things that may get in the way, or if they spot anything and they want to travel or go on an exploration, these would mostly be the first people that see it. And then next on the outer wall is the walkway where the soldiers would be walking back and forth, where they would be, and stuff. So there's that. Next is the Barbican, the most fortified building. Basically, it is also the first layer of defense when it comes to an attack or like in a siege. So they would have to get through this, and this is mostly filled with a lot of soldiers, and it is very heavily guarded and protected. Next, we have the parapets. This is basically a small barrier or a small wall of defense for the soldiers that they may hide behind, and then so they may use as cover, mostly when shooting arrows or if they just need cover in general. This would be what they would have and what they would use to their advantage. And then here is just another view of the parapets. There you go. Next is my the arrow loops. So this is basically where where the archers, would go ahead. They would be inside the walls and they would shoot through very thin and narrow openings. So this would be what they use, and especially because they're higher up, they would have a advantage of shooting down on the enemy and mostly having a good chance to hit them in the head. So there's that. But in speaking of the enemy, here we have the battering ram that the enemies would use. Basically just a beam or a log that the people would swing back and forth or to try to go ahead and knock down a wall. Here's a mantlet. It's basically like a portable shield, kind of. Or like a like a portable thing, like a cover. So this is a thing they can move back and forth, and they could use it to their advantage to go ahead and try to block the arrows as they keep on advancing closer and closer to the tower. And speaking of tower, here we go. Here's a siege tower. It is basically a large tower that is protected, and which the soldiers are able to use to go ahead and climb over the wall, basically. So if they keep on going forward and they push against the wall, they're able to put down the bridge, and they're able to cross onto the wall, and they're able to get behind the wall and get inside the castle. Next is a thing of terrain. Here are mountains. I thought I would add mountains because when you have terrain on your side, it is a pretty big advantage. So I just thought to add mountains and stuff. So there you go. Next is my flag or coat of arms. This is very, very important to me. I think this is very hilarious and very funny. But yeah, this is my coat of arms. It's kind of self-explanatory, and I think it's very, very true. But there's my coat of arms. Next is my tunnel. Um, Here's another offensive attack where the enemy would be able to go ahead, dig underground, and they'd be able to come up somewhere in the castle and get behind the walls and the most heavily protected places like the Barbican or the gatehouse, etc. And then last but not least is the gong. This is used for an enemy, for soldiers see oncoming enemies, or like they use watchtowers that they go across the walls and they see something like enemies or exploration, or they want to travel or something. So they would go ahead and basically hit this thing and make a loud sound and vibration to warn the other soldiers on the wall and also the high officials, so they know that an oncoming attack may be happening, which the commanders and generals would go ahead and tell to them. But there you go. There is my castle. It is a Chinese Asian style castle. Here is a overview of it all from this side. And here is another overview from the right top hand side. There's another overview from this side, from the back right. And then last but not least, there's another overview viewing everything on this side. But there you go. There's my castle project, 30 parts labeled and stuff. But there you go. I hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.